Helping to put your tax problems to rest. Call the tax professionals at Optima now for a free consultation. Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Hey, welcome in. A little under the weather today, but we'll get through it. Appreciate you guys joining us. We'll have the intro music for the show here momentarily and get started on a Thursday edition of the Bruce Hooley Show. At the risk of being sued for copyright infringement by comedian Jeff Foxworthy, who's famous for saying, you might be a redneck if you might not be a conservative Republican if your State of the State address is getting more kudos from Democrats than Republicans. That is where we begin a Thursday edition of the Bruce Hooley Show. Yes, Mike DeWine up in front of the podium yesterday talking about his vision for the state of Ohio. And it's a vision that Democrats like. Well, they don't wholly endorse it, but they certainly endorse it more than members of DeWine's own party do, which, again, might tell you that we don't have a conservative Republican governor. But you already knew that. You already knew that when he clamped down during COVID, when he closed the bars and the restaurants at 10 o'clock, when he vetoed the SAFE Act, it had to be overridden by the state legislature. So I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. I'm just giving you further proof that what you already believed is indeed true. Mike DeWine talked a lot yesterday about free government handouts, tax credits, other things that Democrats love to stuff into budgets. And the takeaway from Republicans in the General Assembly, specifically Rob McCauley, who is the head of the Senate, because Matt Huffman can't be the head of the Senate anymore. He's term limited out in the Senate. Now he's the Speaker of the House. Rob McCauley says it comes down to how much it's going to cost and how it balances with the priorities and range of our chambers, where we have supermajorities in both chambers, of course. Shouldn't they be aligned? Shouldn't the governor, let's look at the federal government, shall we? Is President Trump aligned with the House and with the Senate? Yes. Has a lot gotten done in the first 6+ weeks of the Trump administration? Yes, a lot has gotten done. And more may get done when nothing gets done, because we are, stop me if you've heard this before, on the verge of a government shutdown. But this is a different government shutdown. See, back when Joe Biden was president and the government was about to be shut down, it was the Republicans' fault, and it was very, very bad. Super bad. So bad, in fact, that Democrats talk about how unfair and awful and terrible it was. If you don't believe me, here is Chuck Schumer back when the Republicans were said to be the sand in the oyster and the reason why the government might shut down.
It will be average Americans who suffer most. Some of our military service members could be forced to work without pay. Families who benefit from WIC and other nutrition programs could see benefits halted.
Now that's bad, right? That's terrible. That's awful. Well, it's apparently gotten a lot better, because here's Chuck Schumer yesterday. Now that the House has passed a federal budget, a continuing resolution, that'll take us almost to the end of the calendar year. But even though the House has passed it, we have to have 60 senators agree to allow the budget to come to a vote in the Senate. This is a goofy rule they have where you have to vote on whether you're going to have a vote or not. And you have to get 60 votes. We only have 53 Republicans. We actually, in this, only have 52 because Rand Paul says he's not voting for it. So now here's Schumer saying Democrats, who that previous cut I played for you was from 2024. Now Democrats view a government shutdown completely differently.
Republicans do not have the votes in the Senate to invoke cloture on the House CR. Our caucus is unified on a clean April 11th CR that will keep the government open and give Congress time to negotiate bipartisan legislation that can pass.
His party is not unified. John Fetterman has already said he will vote for continuing to keep the government open. Tim Kaine of Virginia, a lot of federal workers in Virginia a lot of military in Virginia. They will not take kindly to Tim Kaine shutting down the government. Schumer says his caucus is united. They are not. But back to the state of Ohio, where when I read Allison Russo, the Democratic minority leader in the House, it's like she's lauding a Democratic governor. There's this editorial from the Dispatch that Allison Russo penned today. This week, we heard the governor's views on the state of the state. I agree with many of the sentiments and share the hope that Ohio will be the best place to start a family, build a career, and retire with security. Now, what does that mean? When a Democrat says best place to start a family, that means child tax credits. That means freebies. That means more taxes out of your pocket. Build a career. You know what that means? Jobs programs, job training programs, preferably DEI if we can see it past the government. And retire with security, which means soak the rich and don't tax anyone else. That's what that means. So Allison Russo, big fan of what Mike DeWine had to say yesterday. Here's more from her assessment of DeWine's comments. This is all you really need to know about how milquetoast Mike DeWine is as a supposed Republican leader of the state of Ohio, is that Allison Russo doesn't get more than 10 paragraphs into her response to Mike DeWine's address when she's out of things he said to criticize, and she turns her wrath on Donald Trump and the federal government. Mike DeWine spoke for more than an hour yesterday in his State of the State. He didn't outline anything bold, anything imaginative, anything that would conflict with the typical Democratic playbook, because if he did, Allison Russo would be writing about that and complaining about that and criticizing that. And instead, when I flip to page 2, after I print out her response, printed in the Dispatch today, she's on to the federal government, on to criticizing Donald Trump. Laws passed by Congress, like the CHIPS Act, that ensure the technology of tomorrow is being built in Ohio and guarantees new jobs, new investments, and new opportunities to grow our economy, could be dismantled. Well, not by Mike DeWine. He's all about it. He's totally lockstep with you, Allison. You two could win a 3-legged race. And then we get down to my favorite part of Allison Russo's response, which is Democrats always using the phraseology of marketing platforms for years and years and years, which is a phrase I absolutely hate because it is totally not true. You deserve. No, 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 and no. You don't deserve. You work, you earn, then you merit. You don't deserve. Nothing comes free. We're in a pickle nationally because we have this idea that if you reach a certain age, or you're born a certain ethnicity, or you can identify as a certain victim group, well, then we should just give you stuff. You don't deserve it. But Allison starts, she wears the word out in her response. You deserve a better paycheck that fully supports your family. Well, if you work hard, you do. If you don't work hard, you don't. You deserve affordable health care that doesn't force you to choose. No, you don't. You don't deserve. Health care is not a human right. Sorry. You deserve guarantees that our schools, offices, and communities are safe from those intending to harm us. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? You deserve guarantees that our schools, offices, and communities are safe from those intending to harm us? You mean like the poor guy, Allison, who was walking down the street yesterday? Julio Garcia, walking down the street on the south side yesterday, minding his own business on the sidewalk, when a 17-year-old doing donuts in the middle of the afternoon on Marion Road lost control of his vehicle, drove up on the sidewalk, hit Mr. Garcia, and killed him. Is that what Allison Russo means? I don't think so. I don't think so. That's what she should mean. Juveniles in jail. What will this kid get? First of all, he should be tried as an adult. Will he be in Columbus, Ohio? Come on. if he were treated as he should be treated, this kid doing donuts in the street in the middle of a sunny afternoon, and then veers off onto the sidewalk, hits this 58-year-old man and kills him, he could get like 10 years in prison. By the way, he was under the influence of something at the time, the driver, 17 years old. But chances are he'll be tried as a juvenile, and he could get a sentence of up to, not even, up to 90 days in jail and a 6-month license suspension. Ooh, that'll teach him. These are the kinds of soft on crime policies that Democrats advocate for. Mike DeWine yesterday outlined a bunch of stuff that Democrats also advocate for. Oh, more child tax credits, more this, more that. It was a disappointment. Can Mike DeWine read the room? Can he see that Americans who elected Donald Trump, and him, by the way, want cutbacks in government spending? They want downsizing of governments, federal, state. Does Mike DeWine, in a state that has voted more and more and more and more for Donald Trump, the 3 times Trump has run for president, does Mike DeWine sense that there's like a lot of support for deeply conservative policies with the backing of a supermajority in both houses? I guess he doesn't.
Sun, the high today at 71, clear and mild tonight, low 48. Clouds and sun, breezy, warm day tomorrow, the high 78. On Saturday, cloudy, windy, and warm, and the high at 75. Could pick up a shower or thunderstorm. That thunderstorm could bring some hail and damaging wind. On Sunday, windy, cooler, clouds in the morning with a couple of showers. Partly sunny by the afternoon. High Sunday at 61. I'm Steve Williams on 98.9 FM, The Answer.
This is Josh Pick with Aptus Wealth Management. The U.S. and the world have certainly changed a lot in the last few years. We're facing money dangers that we haven't seen in a long time, maybe ever. Inflation continues to be a problem. Interest rate increases have made purchases like cars and homes seemingly impossible for some, and retirement looks like a scary proposition. For many, it appears to be a dire situation and has left them paralyzed and fearful. Will not help us, and there are ways to gain back control.
I'm in, we got a live stream going on here, so I'll just keep that time.
Planning and educate them on how to make appropriate choices for their individual situation.
You will see you, but
whether you have never met with a fiduciary investment advisor before, or you just want a second opinion, we're here to help. Call our office today.
Yeah, so we'll just talk a little
cost-free complimentary meeting. Maybe the key
school funding,
to work
and whatever else.
And don't forget to listen to the Aptus Blueprint Radio Show Friday evenings at 6.
Allison Russo liked his
or call our office today at 614.
Liked his State of the State, which I
say that again.
Allison Russo liked his State of the State, which I thought that's not a good sign if Allison Russo likes it.
That was not your fault. Listen
so,
up. We have a standing by to answer your questions for free. Call now and find out if you have a case and how much it's potentially worth. Call 800-504-8790. I'm here with spokesman John Wolf. So, John, tell everyone listening who should call right now.
Well, Maria, first off, thank you for having me.
She's only in her 3rd term, Allison Russo. I figured she'd been around a lot longer than that.
Anyone who's been injured in an accident.
Familiarity breeds contempt.
She's not going to run for governor, I guess. Why? Because she doesn't want to get beat.
I think they're trying to get behind Acton or whomever the lefties decide they want to fall in love with.
You heard it, folks. Take advantage of this opportunity and call now. 800-504-8790.
We'll chat about that governor's race a little bit. Let's do that.
Advertisement sponsored by
What did he say the commercial was? QC Kinetics?
We all know how challenging it can be to get the quality sleep we need, whether it's falling asleep or staying asleep. So many people are not getting the Z's they need. Well, Z Factor from Relief Factor has the formula to change that. Z Factor goes beyond melatonin and uses a combination of 4 natural ingredients, helps relax your mind so you can fall asleep quicker and then helps you sleep soundly at night. Z Factor is 100% drug-free, so it's safe to take regularly. There's no groggy feeling when you wake up. If you're looking for the right formula for better Z's, give Z Factor a try. I have, and I love it. Right now, you'll save 46% on your first order. That's only $19.95 for a 30-day supply of Z Factor. Call 1-800-4RELIEF. That's 1-800-4RELIEF, or visit relieffactor.com. That's relieffactor.com. Better sleep without drugs. See how Z Factor can
you hear okay?
The Z's you want.
Can you hear the headphones are okay?
Or relieffactor.com.
Are you among the millions of Americans living with chronic pain? If so, you may think prescription opioids are the solution. Truth is, opioids only mask the pain, and they come with serious side effects, from nausea to withdrawal symptoms to overdose. There is another choice: physical therapy. Physical therapists treat pain through movement and exercise. Choose physical therapy. Visit moveforwardpt.com. This public service announcement is brought to you by the American Physical Therapy Association.
QC Kinetics can help you if you have joint pain, if you have been told you're bone on bone, if you hurt when you move. Would you like to get back to pain-free living? You can, thanks to advanced biologic treatment at QC Kinetics. What is it? Well, it's a fancy way of helping your body do what your body is equipped by God to do, which is heal itself. You wouldn't go to the doctor if you cut your finger, stubbed your toe, sprained your ankle. But when you have joint pain, orthopedists will tell you need surgery, or they'll tell you need therapy, or they'll tell you that you need to be tethered to pain pills that may take away the pain, but might introduce some other side effects that are unpleasant. Why don't you try advanced biologic therapies, or at least sit for the free consultation at QC Kinetics? They have clinics all over Columbus. They are growing, and the reason they're growing is because they are thriving, and they are thriving because they are getting people out of pain. No surgery, no downtime. 380-208-4544. 380-208-4544, 380-208-4544, QC Kinetics. You might sense the voice a little lower than normal today, so fighting a cold, and I appreciate my friend Jack Windsor of the Windsor Report coming in to bail me out and spare me a few words on the air. And I really wanted to get Jack's opinion. You guys should be listening to his show every day from 5 to 6 p.m. here, and reading him in the OhioPressNetwork.com as well. But Jack, school funding is something that is in the crosshairs. Angela Chapman, the head of Columbus City Schools, the superintendent, has complained about school funding. I've seen other public schools saying that the governor of the state of Ohio is trying to slash school funding. There's a cut. Matt Huffman has said that the current model that they have for school funding is unsustainable. Most of the school funding comes from local taxes, income, or property. Then a small slice, like 7-8%, comes from the feds, and about 20% from the state.
Right.
So what can you tell us about how the state is trying to recalculate or redistribute state funding for public education?
Yeah, so first I want to acknowledge the woman with Columbus City Schools. I think it's important to note they get some of the highest funding numbers in the state.
Yeah, $16,000 per pupil.
Right. And so, and the other important part to note is that there are people who are concerned about maybe federal funding is going to get cut, because as we know, the U.S. Department of Education, about 50% of them might be sloughed off, which, by the way, is Trump's right. He looked at it and said, hey, we might be able to do a 50% reduction in force, at least. And so there's been a little bit of concern about, is there going to be federal money? But I just want to remind everybody that since 1980, that program has soaked up $3.5 trillion of tax money. And so you go, well, what's the ROI on that? Well, the United States is 26th out of 38 industrialized countries, and test scores have been stagnant. And of course, they've been heavily criticized for mismanaging money, and not a lot of that money goes on to schools. So all of that to say, in Ohio, in 2023, we spent a record $9.79 billion on elementary and high school education, which was a big jump from, like say 2010, which is when they started looking at stuff. And that amount grew in 2024 and 2025. Now, it's important to remember, we got a lot of COVID dollars.
Yes.
Remember that? All that money came in. And there were places like Columbus that hired 100 additional administrators.
Yeah.
Right. So we can talk about whether money's really the problem. But as we look at 2026 and 2027, you have to forgive me, I have to look at the notes here because there's so many numbers, but the House Finance Committee is reviewing Governor DeWine's executive budget proposal, and it's focusing heavily on education. It plans to allocate $12.4 billion for state schools in 2026 and $12.6 billion in 2027, which is a little bit lower than previous years. But I want to remind everyone there was a spike. Now, you mentioned Huffman thinks that the current funding formula is unsustainable because it's complex.
Yeah.
And, part of being a genius is you got to make it simple, but no simpler.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the points of contest in all of this is it about the money, or is it about what we're teaching, how we're teaching it, and what the outcomes are? That's got to be the focus. And so there's a lot of concern because more money, about 500 million, I think, is going to get allocated to Ed Choice, which gives, to me, if you're a parent in, say, Columbus City Schools or Cleveland East, you should be excited about that because your kid's not locked into the zip code
Absolutely
of an underperforming school.
And I say all the time, a good public school is not afraid of money going to private education, because if your public school is performing, it has so many advantages over a private school in that there's just a community spirit. There's just an allure to a public school that's run well, that's delivering on results. And so many of our public schools do, but a lot of them don't. And Columbus doesn't. And I also object to, and I like Vivek Ramaswamy's general idea of merit pay based upon results. I don't know how you're ever going to get that through with teachers unions and existing contracts, because look, the Department of Education, in my opinion, exists because it's a political arm of the teachers unions, and it just continues to take teachers union dues. That goes to the Department of that goes to the teachers unions, and the unions, then support Democratic candidates who grow the Department of Education.
And they'll argue this all day long, but by the way, those are our tax dollars.
Yeah.
That are supporting some of the most egregious things going on in our schools. And you're absolutely right. It does fund teacher unions. And by the way, teacher unions are the ones that are carrying pro-Palestinian signs. They want kids to get their body parts cut off. They want limitless abortion. So you got to ask yourself, are they really in the right mindset? And I think that is where the battle has to be fought this budget cycle is, what are we fighting for in education? I told you this before we came on air. I was honored, it's been over a decade now, to be a founding board member of a charter school in Columbus, one of the poorest communities here in the city. And I remember it was duct tape and bubble gum. The school was essentially it was in a church, and it was underfunded, but it was reading, writing, arithmetic. You showed up at this time, you left at this time, and it was all hands on deck, and this is how you did it. If you didn't follow the rules, you got kicked out. And some of these kids, we talked about it, they came from places where dad might be standing on a corner in a white t-shirt. Mom might be getting into cars, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And it was tough, but you know what happened? They performed. And the way that these kids not only started getting it educationally, but how they started to develop personally and have true self-esteem, not this, DEI crap where, you're valuable because you're black and you're not valuable because you're white, but literally performing and going, wow, I get this. I understand education. I can think. And so we have to really wrestle with that. It's about outcomes, and it's not always about more money. It's like giving a spoiled rich kid more money. That doesn't change the behavior.
No, discipline, structure, expectations work with kids when they know you care, when they know that you're invested in them, and they gather from your reaction to them that they have potential and you're investing in their potential. Ramaswamy's an idea guy. I can't imagine that if there's ever a Governor Ramaswamy, his first state of the state would be as boring and milquetoast as Mike DeWine's was yesterday. Do you think he eventually clears the field, and are the Democrats going to run anybody? Is Amy Acton I think people are afraid. Tim Ryan, Sherrod Brown are afraid of losing, and that's why they might leave it to Amy Acton.
Well, first of all, it might be Amy Acton. She's attracting money. She's attracting support. She's kind of making the rounds. I would not be shocked, though, if Tim Ryan jumps into that race. He's still being very active on social media. But with respect to Mike DeWine, it didn't take me very long. And I said this last night. Picture this. Here's Mike DeWine, a 78-year-old relic in politics, been in it since I was born, steps up to deliver his state of the state, and he's got a plan. And it's about the children, because, nothing screams I'm down with the kids more like a guy who spent millions in taxpayer funds trying to get them jabbed, right? Trying to make them take shots that would eventually create things like myocarditis. And also, he vetoed the bill that would have prohibited puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and cutting off healthy body parts. He lost me there.
Yeah, and I think Amy Acton lost a lot of people standing beside him during COVID, which is thankfully the circumstance that gave us you.
Amen.
And caused your star to rise and you to end up here at The Answer. Follow Jack Windsor here and at theohiopressnetwork.com.
Thanks, brother. Sorry, that was long-winded.
No, man, that was great.
Was that helpful? I hope it
very
was
helpful.
Just hours before his confirmation hearing, the White House will withdrew the nomination of former Florida Congressman David Weldon to lead the CDC. The action reportedly prompted by concerns that Weldon lacked the necessary votes to win confirmation. As Trump economic policies begin to take hold, inflation shows signs of tapering off. Wholesale inflation increased last month, but by much less than in January. Facing a midnight Friday deadline, Senate Republicans hope today is the day they'll pass a bill to avoid a government shutdown, but they will need some Democrat votes to get that done. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin mapping a new course for the environmental regulator, cutting red tape as well as excessive regulations. Stocks lower on Wall Street. The Dow is down about 322 points. The NASDAQ off 233. More details, srnnews.com.
Wesley Financial Group is not a law firm.
Hi, I'm Chuck McDowell, the timeshare cancellation guy and founder of Wesley Financial Group. And I want to set the record straight. I am not an attorney. I've never wanted to be an attorney. And the truth is, I really don't even like attorneys. If I sound like an attorney, I'll apologize. But what I've learned in my 15 years in the timeshare cancellation business is you don't need to be an attorney to get folks out of their timeshare. At Wesley, we've helped over 40,000 families cancel their timeshare, and I want to share with you how we do it. Just give my office a call. I guarantee if we take you as a client, we'll get you out of your timeshare, or you'll pay nothing. Attorneys, this was meant to be funny, so please don't sue me, especially my friend Kenneth from Black River Falls, Wisconsin.
Call now for your free timeshare exit info kit. 800-613-5454. 800-613-5454. 800-613-50.
News, opinion, passion. Here, 98.9 FM, The Answer, anywhere you go. With The Answer's mobile app at 989theanswer.com. Also on your smart speakers, TuneIn, or iHeart.
Celebrate twice as much with NordVPN's birthday deal. Get 72% off and a coupon for up to 1 year free. Visit NordVPN and discover the benefits. Secure up to 10 devices with a single account. Encrypt your online traffic. Reduce the risk of phishing, scams, and malware with NordVPN's Threat Protection Pro. Get the special birthday deal at NordVPN.com. Additional terms apply. NordVPN.
I'm going to let you in on a little wireless hack that can cut your cell phone bill in half. Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile have convinced you need unlimited data. The fact is, most people don't. Pure Talk only charges $25 a month for unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data plus hotspot. Stop overpaying for wireless. Dial pound 250 and say spend less, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month with Pure Talk.
ProView Remodeling, Ohio's #1 choice in sunroofs, windows, doors, decks, sidings, patios, porches, basements, and bathroom remodels. Call ProView Remodeling today and get 25% off or 60 months, 0 interest. That's right, 60 months, 0 interest. Call or text 7 days a week, 614-756-3140. You win with ProView Remodeling, 614-756-3140. Check us out at ProViewRemodeling.com.
Hi, it's Bruce Hooley, and I hope you'll join me every day, 11 to 1, for the Bruce Hooley Show. A lot of consequential issues that we have to talk about. It's a transformational time in our country, and you want to understand all the issues. That's what I hopefully help you do. Bruce Hooley Show, 11 to 1, Monday through Friday on 989theanswer.com.
Do you have your tickets yet? You don't want to be caught on the outside looking in. First of all, you'd be really hungry on Friday, April the 25th. If you can't get in the doors at the Der Dutchman restaurant to sample the sumptuous Der Dutchman buffet, roasted chicken, roast beef, mashed potatoes and gravy, awesome Amish fare, including assorted pies for dessert. And then you also miss a great night of conservative talk because Larry Elder is coming from California, the sage of South Central, host of the Larry Elder Show, as the LA Times called him, blackface of white supremacy. Larry Elder has a country to save, and he has a buffet to eat. And you can eat it with him on April the 25th at Der Dutchman Restaurant. Join me and Jack Windsor on stage with Larry Elder, talking politics and culture, and probably a little bit of food too. What kind of pie will Larry pick? It's worth coming just for that. Get your tickets at 989theanswer.com. They're more than half gone. If you snooze, you lose, and you go hungry. And you miss Larry Elder, April 25th at Der Dutchman. Tickets, 989theanswer.com. Well, we had an interesting moment break out in the halls of Washington, D.C. on, let's see, what day was it? It wasn't yesterday. It was Tuesday, I believe. And we had the, I think, Foreign Affairs Subcommittee on Europe, which is kind of a committee that meets in a small room. It's not like House Oversight or Judiciary or one of those committees that ever really get much publicity. If it gets publicity, it's because something happened that captures headlines. And the something that captured headlines was a pretty innocuous moment in the hearing. You know, they always have these formal introductions of ranking members of the committee when they get to speak. And they always talk to them about there's Mr. So-and-so or the gentle lady or the gentleman from, well, the head of the Foreign Affairs Subcommittee is a Texas congressman by the name of Keith Self. And Keith Self was introducing a representative from the state of Delaware. And this is how that went.
I now recognize the representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ranking Member Keating, also wonderful.
Mr. Chairman, could you repeat your introduction again, please?
Yes, we have set the standard on the floor of the House, and I'm simply.
What is that standard, Mr. Chairman? Would you repeat what you just said when you introduced a duly elected representative from the United States of America, please?
I will. The representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Mr. Chairman, you are out of order. Mr. Chairman, have you no decency? I've come to know you a little bit, but this is not decent.
We will continue this.
You will not continue it with me unless you introduce a duly elected representative the right way.
This hearing is adjourned.
And that's all, folks. Now, what happened there? Well, the ranking minority member, Bill Keating of Massachusetts, took, as you heard, great umbrage at the fact that Keith Self, the head of the Foreign Affairs Subcommittee, introduced the representative from Delaware as Mr. McBride. Here it is again. And note how Mr. McBride, who is in fact Mr. McBride, it is a person who used to identify as Tim McBride, who now has long hair and a dress and wears rouge and makeup, and identifies as Sarah McBride, but still has all of his biological appendages from his years as Tim McBride. Listen to how Tim/Sarah McBride responds to his introduction by Keith Self.
I now recognize the representative from Delaware, Mr. McBride.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair? What is that about? That didn't seem to upset Bill Keating of Massachusetts, that Tim/Sarah McBride, a dude, called Keith Self, who is a war hero, Madam Chair. He was only upset about the fact that Keith Self, following Donald Trump's executive order, recognizing two sexes, male and female, followed the orders of his president. It greatly upset Bill Keating of Massachusetts that he would dare to say that Tim/Sarah McBride is in fact a male. So I bring this up because this is a fight we're going to have to keep fighting. Democrats are not giving up on this. They are counting on us to do what we've done before on gay marriage, on gay adoptions, on everything else. They are counting on us to lose our backbone, to tire of fighting this fight, to weary of standing for truth and bend under the browbeating that they apparently intend to continue to foist upon us, foretelling the visual, literal truth about matters related to sex and biology. We exceed ground in this war when we do what Tommy Lahren of Outkick recommended doing, which Tommy Lahren's supposed to be a conservative, and I think in most cases she is, but in this instance, she makes a horrific mistake by making allowances that she should never make, because if you make these allowances, then you're already giving up ground in this war. Gender is not a thing. Gender is a made-up construct. Gender was invented for the very purpose of calling into question God's divine design, male and female. That's why gender exists. Gender was invented so that the argument could be repositioned that God did not make humans male and female. No, there's gray area. You might be this or that or whatever. No. And Tommy Lahren falls for this.
There is a representative who is transgender, Sarah McBride, who is mostly referred to as Mr., and it's getting a lot of traction. I feel like it's mean-spirited to do it just to be mean. Now, that doesn't mean that I want transgender people in women's sports or women's spaces, because that has an actual physical, tangible impact.
Now, you can not want them in men's and women's spaces, but if you do what you advocate for doing, you are eventually going to get that in men's and women's spaces.
Now, that doesn't...
He didn't do it to be mean. He didn't call Tim McBride Mr. McBride to be mean. He called Tim McBride Mr. McBride to be accurate, to be truthful. Okay? So you are bending, you are giving up in the war for truth. You are giving up ground that you will never be able to get back if you submit to the lie that, well, that hurts my feelings, so you can't say it. That is why you don't call the representative from Delaware Sarah McBride. You call him Tim McBride because that is their given name. That's why you don't call Richard Levine Rachel Levine. It's why you don't call Bruce Jenner Caitlyn Jenner. And I've been guilty of it at times too. But you call them by their given name at birth before their minds were infected with this virus that has polluted our country, that other countries in Europe and elsewhere have exposed, and many studies now have exposed, for the lie and the danger that it is. The suicide rate is 12 times higher among those who have sex reassignment surgeries. Matt Walsh was talking about this yesterday when he was discussing so-called conversion therapy. You know, there are a lot of cities in Ohio who have that have banned so-called conversion therapy. You know what conversion therapy is? By calling it conversion therapy, you are doing what Tommy Lahren did, ceding ground. You know what conversion therapy? You know what the left determines conversion therapy? If you are gay and you go in for psychological counseling and you are counseled to recognize that God made you to have physical relations with someone of the opposite sex, the left refers to that as conversion therapy. When you go in and you believe you are a woman, but you are in fact a man, a psychiatrist, a specialist in mental health counseling, who counsels you to recognize that you are in fact a man and not a woman, they deem that conversion therapy, and they want gender affirming care. Gender affirming care should be sexual affirming care, biological affirming care, because that's what it is. No, you're not a woman. You're a man. I'm affirming your authentic biology. The representative from Texas, Keith Self, recognized this and explained why he called McBride Mr. McBride, saying it's not my responsibility to participate in someone else's delusion, nor is it my responsibility, nor yours. Say true things always.
This afternoon, clouds and sun, the high today at 71, clear and bright 48. Clouds and sun, breezy, warm day tomorrow, the high 78. On Saturday, cloudy, windy, and warm, and the high at 75. Could pick up a shower or thunderstorm. That thunderstorm could bring some hail and damaging wind. On Sunday, windy, cooler, clouds in the morning with a couple of showers. Partly sunny by the afternoon. High Sunday at 61. I'm Steve Williams on 98.9 FM, The Answer.
This is my pillow.
Okay.
You see that ACC tournament game?
The foul call?
No, just the fact that the Atlantic Coast Conference, nothing screams Atlantic, like two teams playing from the Pacific Coast. You had Stanford and Cal.
Oh, man.
Playing in the
ACC. Wow, that's hilarious.
Stanford and Cal had to fly to North Carolina to play in the ACC tournament when they could have been a half hour away.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
If you don't know where to start, join Rodney Peters from Peters Wealth Group every Saturday at 10 and 2 for Retire Ready Ohio. Rodney shares helpful tips and strategies that just might change the course of your retirement. Listen every Saturday at 10 and 2 to Retire Ready Ohio with Rodney Peters of Peters Wealth Group. The firm offers insurance services, investment advisory services are offered through Peters Wealth Group, a state-registered investment advisor.
Patrick was way behind on his IRS taxes.
Way over my head. The total amount were just over $30,000. $30,000.
Then the IRS came to collect.
Started getting letter after letter. A lien had been filed against me. They were going to basically like hang me completely out to dry.
He had to do something.
That's when I reached out to Optima Tax Relief.
Patrick's life quickly got a lot easier.
It was very easy, pretty much hands off. You know, they picked up the ball and ran with it.
And how'd it go?
I couldn't believe it. I had to ask like 2 or 3 times. I saved an incredible amount of money.
How does Patrick feel about Optima?
Couldn't be happier. They definitely helped me. Optima Tax Relief, the best way to say their stuff in the business.
Do what Patrick did and call Optima Tax Relief for a free consultation. Call 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433. 800-965-1433.
Optima Tax Relief.
Testimonial from an actual client. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Hi, this is Ralph Drollinger, President and founder of Capital Ministries. I have the privilege of leading the Senate and House member Bible study every week in Washington, D.C. And I'm also the host of the new weekend program here on your radio station called Capital Ministries Weekend. Listen along as we discuss the crossroads between the Bible and politics on a timely basis.
Listen to Capital Ministries Weekend, Sunday mornings at 7:30 on 98.9 FM The Answer. While Dennis Prager is recuperating, we know you miss your daily dose of Dennis. That's why Pragertopia is giving you a special gift. Right now, Pragertopia members can hear the best 2 hours of Dennis's favorite segments from as far back as 2010. On Monday, you can hear the Happiness Hour.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what I'm about.
Tuesday is Celebrity Guest Day.
Donald Trump Jr. is in studio with me.
On Wednesday, it's the Male-Female Hour.
I really do wish there were a way to ascertain the number of marriages that this hour has helped.
Thursday, the Ultimate Issues Hour.
Not having ultimate issues clarity is like having a map, but you don't know where you're going.
And Friday is Open Lines.
Feel free to ask me anything about me, about you, about life.
So if you're missing your daily dose of Dennis, go to Pragertopia.com and hear all your favorite segments, along with lectures, celebrity interviews, his famous Torah teachings, and more. Get your daily dose of Dennis at Pragertopia.com. Pragertopia.com.
When I woke up this morning, I thought, I feel bad for the people who listen to my radio show, who at this very moment are not laying on Giza Dream bed sheets or resting on a comfortable MyPillow, because you could be, and you won't pay nearly what I paid to do either one or both. Because right now, the mega sale at MyPillow.com affords you the opportunity to get queen size Giza Dream bed sheets for under $50 and to get a standard MyPillow for under $15. Those are outrageous prices, but I don't mind, because I want you to be as comfortable as I am. Now, I also sleep on a MyPillow mattress topper, and I also have a MyPillow towel set. You can get all of those as well when you browse through the offerings at MyPillow.com, because this is their first ever mega sale. Now, not everything pertains to your sleep experience. You've seen that wonderful, beautiful cross that Mike Lindell wears. They come in men's and women's styles, and they are 30% off as well. So use my promo code Bruce at MyPillow.com to get the lowest prices on every single product offering. MyPillow.com, promo code Bruce. This is the week that everything went crazy 5 years ago. We shut down everything. No large gatherings, social distancing, no more high school sports, no NBA, no NHL, no anything. Gradually, we have come back to our senses in the 5 years since. Now, maybe some year Ohio State will get back in the NCAA basketball tournament. Not this year. But out at Ohio State, while they botched the coaching hire last year for basketball, they are returning to one thing that makes a lot of sense to me. And this was something that went away during COVID. The ACT and the SAT test scores are now suddenly relevant again for incoming freshmen at OSU in the fall. Yes, after 5 years of test optional applications, OSU announced yesterday that it will reinstate its ACT and SAT test requirement for first-year undergraduate applicants to the Columbus campus. Now, the story from Sheridan Hendricks in the Dispatch says that COVID disrupted academic life, true, and made it, quote, nearly impossible for students to gather for the test. Well, I mean, that's true, but let me just ask a question. When COVID hit and everything from an academic perspective had to go online, why could the ACT and SAT not also go online? So we had to suspend the ACT and the SAT. Now, you and I both know that the reason why the ACT and the SAT were suspended was because it was deemed to be racist, right? Because right after COVID hit in May of 2020, George Floyd died in Minneapolis. And everything became racist. You could gather outside to protest George Floyd's death. That was the only place where you didn't have to have 6 feet social distancing. And you even had people say, no, it's okay to protest outside. No, is it okay to skateboard in LA skate parks? No. Is it okay to gather on the beach? No. Is it okay to, I don't know, play basketball? No. We're going to put lids on the baskets. We're going to put sand in the skate parks. We're going to arrest you for going to the beach. But if you want to protest, that's fine. Because racism must be decried, even if germs are exchanged. 1,100 colleges and universities adopted a no test score standard for admissions and expanded to just over 2,000 schools by 2024. Shall we venture a wild guess on what they've since found out? A review of data from the test optional programs show that applicants' test scores were one of the most important indicators of academic success. You don't say. Really? Students who submitted test scores had higher GPAs and were more likely to progress through the university toward a degree. Who could have seen that coming? Anybody. So what is OSU going to do now? Well, they promised that while returning to test scores and making kids take test scores, they don't want to hurt the delicate feelings of those kids taking tests. So they are going to review each applicant holistically, whatever that means. The ACT and SA score components will create a fuller picture of future academic success at Ohio State, which also is introducing what it calls a new concept called super scoring. We could have used a little of that yesterday against Iowa. We could have used some super scoring yesterday or some super defense. Super scoring, if you're curious at home, is a way to calculate the students' best test scores across multiple attempts. What? What? Is this how they conduct classes at OSU? Like you get to take a midterm twice? And, you know, I questions 1 through 50. The first time I did pretty well. It was 50 through 100 that tripped me up. So maybe if you could take like my score on 1 through 50 from the first test and 50 through 100 on the second test, I do well. That's what they're going to do. You can take the ACT and the SAT multiple times and they can combine your English, your math, your this, your that to super score. Is that indicative of what you're capable of doing in one sit-down opportunity for an exam? No, it isn't. No, it isn't. I have news for you, snowflake students. When you get a job in the real world, you are expected to A, show up at the job, B, report to your workstation, and C, deliver on demand right then and there. Not like, well, you know, if you average out how I performed, Tuesday I was pretty good. Wednesday I was down. Thursday I came in late, overslept. Friday I cut out early. But like if you would consider my whole entire work week based upon what I did Tuesday from 10 to 2 and Wednesday from like 3 to 5, then I'm actually pretty good and you ought to give me a raise, in fact. Ohio State actually says, this approach allows students to showcase their best performance, easing the pressure of achieving a high score in a single test setting. Oh, well, please. Let's alleviate all the pressure on these kids we possibly can, who are at the very best point in their life while mom and dad are paying the bills for them to go to college, and have the temerity to expect Junior to actually go to class, study, and get good grades. This is aggravating when it applies to colleges, but it is terminal for our country when we ingrain this kind of attitude in people who eventually will have to leave the cloistered environment of a college campus and report to work and actually produce results. Because those of us in my generation and the generation behind me are eventually going to have to hand off the ball to kids who are in college right now. And we're going to need them to continue to produce. They understand this in China. They understand this in India. They understand this in other countries where their education numbers don't lag way behind like ours do, where they are not enslaved to wokeism and to super scoring and to suspending test scores because we don't really think that's an accurate barometer of how students should perform. Since the beginning of time, since the first school building was erected in the United States of America, and since the first group of students sat down, were you not measured upon your performance in classroom for your ability to retain information and adapt and apply that information to life skills? I think so. I think that's how we built this country. But we're addicted to reimagining and to making allowances for, what was it they said? Oh, easing the pressure of achieving a high score in a single test setting. You know where they don't give you that leeway? When you're getting out of a Higgins boat on the beaches at Normandy. They don't give you that. You don't get to like, oh, we're going to do everything we can. The Germans, those guys up there, they're going to give you the ease of seeing if you can get out better the next time. No. Like, oh, this kind of stuff drives me, as you can tell, crazy.
Tax planning and other
Plan hurt today. Voice gone.
Like an outside CFO.
Appreciate you guys joining. Take care. Have a good day.
We're really only keeping score.